Renewal Grass was one of my favorite exotics before it got absolutely nuked by Bungie, and apparently this nuking of the exotic was actually a bug. This was actually only intended to be a 40% reduction on the cooldown. However, it was a lot more than that prior to Season of the Deep, and with this season launching, it fixed that. Now that that cooldown is actually fixed, this exotic is back and it is very, very solid. And if you have the right build and know how to use this in the gameplay loop, which you're in luck, I know just how to do that, and I got a build for you. When we talk about the gameplay loop here, you're going to want to throw your Duskfield Grenade at a group of enemies, freezing them inside, allowing you to get that damage reduction from enemies, which is 50% in PvE, and then you also get damage resistance inside by 25% for you and your allies. So once you're inside that Duskfield, you're going to want to build up your abilities back by throwing your shuriken. Don't forget to shatter that crystal in the middle, as that will boost your recharge rate for your grenade and other abilities thanks to a fragment we have in Stasis. And then you're also going to want to dodge and use your shurikens, as I said, to build up that ability charge back thanks to mods that we have. And then you're going to be able to just throw your grenade again and kind of loop this gameplay over and over, allowing you to have a lot more resilience and just do a lot of work with this exotic. Now, without further ado, let me show you this build to use it in the best way possible. So when we look at our subclass here, we're going to use our super, which is obviously the Silence and Squall. Then you're going to want to throw on Gambler's Dodge so you can get your melee back when you dodge near an enemy. Use whatever jump you like. I prefer to use triple jump. And you have obviously the Withering Blade, which is your Stasis Shurikens, which allows you to have the ability to damage and slow them. And if you get enough slow stacks, they're going to become frozen. You're going to have 2 charges of this with the Hunter build. And then obviously your grenades are going to be the Duskfield Grenade. Our aspects are going to start with Grim Harvest. So when we defeat slowed or frozen combatants, we're going to create Stasis Shards. And when we pick these shards up, it actually will grant us melee energy. On top of that, it's also going to work with one of our new armor mods we got this season, Elemental Charge, allowing us to get armor charges from picking up Stasis Shards. Our second aspect is going to be the Touch of Winter, which increases the slow field size and creates a small stasis crystal on impact. This allows us to shatter that stasis crystal and start our regeneration for our grenade thanks to one of the fragments in this build. Speaking of fragments, we're going to start off with the Whisper of Chains. While you are near frozen targets or a friendly stasis crystal, you're going to take reduced damage from targets, which is perfect because we're going to want to be near frozen enemies all the time with this build. Whisper of Fissures is next, which increases the damage and size of the burst of stasis when you destroy a stasis crystal or defeat a frozen target, which we're going to be doing a lot as well. We got Whisper of Shards, which is the one that is the main focus of this build, as when you shatter a stasis crystal, it's going to boost your grenade recharge rate, and the more stasis crystals you shatter, it's going to increase the duration of this benefit, plus that plus 10 resilience is always a good thing. Whisper of Refraction is next, which allows you to get class ability energy when you defeat slowed or frozen targets. And then finally, we're going to end this off with Whisper of Durance. Slow from your abilities last longer, and for those abilities that linger, their duration will also increase. Again, building into our Renewal Grass, we're going to be slowing a lot of enemies with our Duskfields and our Shurikens, so this is going to be perfect. Just in our subclass here, you can just really tell that this build is going to be built completely around throwing that Duskfield and then freezing as many enemies as possible so you can get your grenade recharge rate back when you shatter that crystal in the center, and then looping that gameplay. There are some stats in this build that are vital to making this thing succeed, and those are going to be high resilience, discipline, and mobility. Mobility is allowing us to get our dodge back faster, while resilience is just an obvious one at this point in PvE since it's a 30% damage reduction, and then discipline so we can have the shortest cooldown on our grenades. For artifact mods, there aren't any that benefit the Stasis subclass in particular. Grab whatever authorized mods you want so you can decrease the amount of energy cost it takes to push some armor mods on, and then go from there. Now, let's take a look at some weapons because there are some that actually allow this build to excel. In the kinetic slot, Riptide is a phenomenal choice here. If you have Chill Clip on that, this is one of the best fusion rifles in the game, hands down. It works against a ton of different champions. Plus, it's going to allow you to slow and freeze enemies, which is exactly what you want to do so you can create more stasis shards so you can get those armor charges and constantly loop your gameplay. Another one you could run though is the Aegir's Scepter Trace Rifle Exotic if you want to run that. However, I actually prefer to run the Riptide in this because in our energy slot, Cold Heart is a phenomenal one. And you might be wondering why Cold Heart. Well, it's going to generate ionic traces for you. And even though you're on the Stasis subclass, picking up an ionic trace is still going to give you ability energy to all of your abilities. This is going to be vital for allowing us to loop the gameplay even more. However, if you want to use Aegir Scepter, Iterative Loop, Fusion Rifle is a great call there, or whatever arc weapon you want. And then for heavy weapons, you could run pretty much whatever you want. The Stasis Waveframe from Lightfall is okay. I kind of have been experimenting with it, and it's not too bad. You could also use Salvation's Grip if you don't use a exotic energy or kinetic weapon, or you could just go with any sort of stasis weapon that you choose. Now that we've gone over pretty much everything else in the build, let's take a look at the armor mods to boost this build even more. On our helmet, we're going to be using the Arc Siphon mod, or you could use Void Siphon, Solar Siphon, kind of whatever you want, Dynamo, and then Harmonic Siphon, so we can allow us to create orbs when we get kills with stasis weapons, which is why I recommend using stasis weapons and arc weapons here, because they're the cheaper ones, allowing you to throw that Dynamo on a lot easier. On our gauntlets, this is where we're going to be utilizing our armor charges with Grenade Kickstart, because the reduction to the cooldown from Renewal Grasp is still significant without Grenade Kickstart. This is why I choose to use this one here. And then Impact Induction, so we can reduce our cooldown even more when we cause damage with a melee attack. And then Momentum Transfer, because anytime we cause damage with our grenade, we're going to reduce our melee cooldown. And this is going to be great because we're going to be throwing our dust fields at large packs of enemies, damaging them a lot. And then on your chest piece, I like to run resistance mods here. You could throw a charged up, or you could run a reserves mod. The choice is up to you there. And then on the boots, we have the second most important mod in this build, which is Elemental Charge, which allows us to get armor charges when we pick up stasis shards. This is an escalating chance every time you pick more up. And then we have Innervation, so we can reduce the grenade cooldown when we pick up an orb, and better already, so we can have our health regen when we start picking up an orb. You could also use Recuperation here. They're pretty much interchangeable. It's kind of just up to you what you want to use there. And then finally on the cloak, 2 bombers, so anytime we dodge, we're going to get some grenade energy back, and then a Reaper, so we can create a orb after the weapon final blow when we use our dodge. As you can see, with all the moving parts inside of this build, it really allows us to throw our grenades pretty much at will. If you're doing the gameplay loop properly, you're going to be constantly having uptime on different abilities, allowing you to spam them all and get that spicy damage reduction thanks to Renewal Grasps. I personally love this exotic, and before it got nuked into the ground, it was one of my favorites in the game, and I'm glad that it's made a comeback into the scene now. So definitely try this build out for yourself, and if you do, let me know what you think of it. Appreciate you all making it to the end of the video here, dropping a like and subscription to the channel. It's free, easy to do, and it helps me out a ton. I would greatly appreciate you. And also, if you want some more of my content, be sure to head down to the description and check out both my Twitch and TikTok links. I hope to see you there one day.